Hi, I'm Trevor from trevordumbleton.com, and today we're going to talk about, do you care about your customers, or do you do like a lot of larger companies and surcharge loyal customers? Often companies, especially larger ones, treat loyal customers with thinly disguised contempt or just contempt. One of the ways they do that is with higher prices, and insurance companies are masters at this tactic, although most of them do have the grace to match the online renewal price when you phone them. It's okay if you're the kind of person who instinctively goes to an online comparison site when the renewal letter arrives, and people like me do that, and we're sometimes called rate tarts, but less good if you do like I did for the first decade of my life and just accept this year's price unquestioned. When I did finally check, it was pretty much double because it had gone up by inflation plus a bit and whatever else. So it's pretty much double what I could have got elsewhere. And when I rang up, they said, well, we can match it now. Well, no, you should have done that in the first place. And they lost the business for 30 years after that. Not a good idea, really, from their point of view. Make a little bit more profit for a few years, or make a lot of profit over a lifetime. Yeah, I know which I'd prefer, but very short term, and they preferred the other way. Same goes if you offer special deals for new customers, and that's pretty standard practice. Magazines have done it, you get a trial subscription, things like that. Cable companies do it, broadband does it. And if the new deal's only for a limited time, such as a trial subscription, that's pretty much acceptable, because it's clear that it's new customers only, that kind of thing. And it's quite common in lots of markets, including internet marketing, to offer free trials or a low price trial followed by a full price subscription. Quite often happens with things that will do sort of pay $47, pay the first dollar now, and $46 in a week's time. And that's fine. What I don't like personally is the ones that if you click away from the site you get a reduced price, so the keenest customers get surcharged. Don't think that's good practice. So if you're doing that, consider what your customers think. And the other thing you can do, obviously, if your prices change, is keep your customers loyal by grandfathering in the old price, which means that existing customers don't get the price rise or whatever. Yahoo did that with their online directory. People who were listed way back when in the mid-1990s had a free entry, and they've kept that as long as the site's still there. Those who paid the one-off price, which is what it moved to for a lifetime listing, kept that, and it's only newer customers in the last, well, however many years it is now, that pay the annual listing price. In Aweber, who do my autoresponder service, did the same for their existing customers when their prices changed. I've been with them long enough to benefit from that. The only difference is they've added a few bells and whistles to the account. I don't get those because I'm paying the old price. They come with the new one. Fair enough. My decision not to worry about the upgrade, because they're not stuff I'm particularly worried about, but I could upgrade, but I'd have to pay the new price. Then there's exclusive offers, and they can work well, but personally I don't think they should be better for brand new customers than existing ones. In other words, unless you're really unsure about the product or service, in which case maybe you should do it under a different name for a while and just test it. An exclusive offer, I think, should be tested with existing customers first, and that's almost exactly opposite to what the attitude I've taken by my podcasting host. I finally got through to a different customer service rep now, and the situation's resolved, but it still left me with a very bad taste in my mouth, and that's something that could have been avoided if all their customer service people were, well, actually trained. Sounds bad, but I think that's the case. At the time of doing this, I'd only been with them less than 2 weeks, and I'm paying a monthly fee for a limited amount of uploads per month. And the fee's reasonable, and the deal's pretty much the same as every other podcast hosting company. You get slightly different upload amounts and slightly different bandwidth amounts and things like that, but they're all plus or minus a little bit pretty close to each other because they all check the market same as everyone else does. A day or two ago I logged onto my control panel, and there was a big banner and an affiliate link that I could use for anyone who could basically get unlimited uploads for exactly the same price. Well, actually it turns out not quite exactly the same. The headline price is per month, but only if you pay 12 months in a go, otherwise it's slightly more, fair enough. But pretty much the same price as I'm paying for limited uploads. If I was on one of their higher packages, and I was only on their second out of I think 5, I'd actually be spending more money and getting less back, which isn't very good at all, and again, as I said, isn't the kind of impression you really want to give your customers. So when I saw that, I dropped a message to their customer services, got to the original "did you mean this, do these FAQs answer you?" No, send the email, and which is good for an internet company because I actually got a reply. And if you try getting a reply out of Google or eBay actually have improved a lot. They're a lot better. Google, it tends to be a Turing response where you get something that their computer thinks is appropriate after a delay that makes it look as though a human's done it. Pretty certain that's what they do. They've never admitted it. But the original reply I got basically said, tough luck, we're not going to let you switch to the new package at the same price as you currently pay unless you get someone new to join us. And the word that immediately came to my mind was shysters. Now, just lack of training, I think. That was a shame, because when I did my original research, they seemed like a good enough company, and even though it's resolved, I'm still less than certain about them because of the way it was handled. So you need to think about how you handle things. There was a TV program about a hotelier who answered on sites like TripAdvisor, and he laid rip into the customers and wondered why he wasn't getting any customers. Yeah. Same kind of thing. You need to make sure your persona on the web and your replies matches. And with me, with only a handful of podcasts on their service, and the fact I'd still not submitted them to iTunes at that stage, meant I could change to one of their competitors, Libsyn or Blueberry, however you pronounce either of those, were the two others on my short list. And notice I haven't actually mentioned my podcasting host by name. That's deliberate, because I'm not sure by the time you actually watch this or listen to this that they're going to be my host. Customer relationships are fragile, and that is the real message. A customer is valuable, but only valuable if you look after them. Otherwise they can work exactly the opposite way. That's why some companies respond well to Twitter and things like that, because they know that if they don't, word of mouth spreads really, really fast, especially if it's bad word of mouth. There was a fairly recent survey that found that over a quarter of people in America were far more likely to speak about a bad experience than a good one. And there's stats around that support that kind of things. Most people are happier moaning than they are saying, yeah, I got really great service there. And from your point of view, that means you need to make sure your customers are happy, or if you have to fire them, which, if they're being really awkward, asking for completely outrageous things or just don't fit with you, yeah, firing them can work. And there was a bank I read about a few years ago who did that. They fired their least profitable customers, the ones that actually were costing them money. But they said, sorry, we've had a reshoot and whatever. They didn't offend them. They just said, we can no longer support your account, but we can recommend you to our competitor here. The customers were pretty happy about that because they'd found a replacement for them. So firing customers can work if you handle it well. But if you don't handle it well, obviously you run the risk of upsetting your current customers, and they're the ones that spend most with you. You've already got the acquisition cost. In other words, they're probably your most profitable customers. And it comes down to how you handle problems, because that's probably the only time they're going to contact you. And if the podcasting company I originally signed up with had answered me with an email that said, you've only just joined, the offer's the same price, or actually it's not quite the same price, it's that if you pay us annually, otherwise it's a little bit more, because it costs us a bit more to have accounting and so on, fair enough. We've upgraded your account. If they'd just clicked the button, rather than still as I was done, I had to go through and re-sign up, I'd been really happy and I'd be wholeheartedly recommending them. Instead, it took quite a few emails, including one that said I was going to mention on my blog. I've changed the wording slightly, and instead I'm mentioning them, but not by name, and implicitly I'm recommending one of their two main competitors, and I'm still thinking of switching away from them. I don't think that's a good reaction from a customer service viewpoint. You need to analyse how you react to customers to make sure you're not inadvertently or advertently doing the same thing. So thinking cap time, even if it's just a holding response or a yeah that's okay response or whatever else, it's much better than nah, sort it out yourself, we don't really care response. Even if that's not what you were meant, if it comes across that way, and quite often if you're sending an important email, sit back, read it out loud. That actually is another nutshell you probably should get from this, because reading out loud, you'll notice, or whatever, or just count to 10. That works as well. In other words, set it to one side and then put it back up later. If you'd like more help with your internet marketing, pop across to my site, trevordumbleton.com, and see whether we get on, and if so, let's team up.